Thank you for this introduction. Yes, this talks about some new technologies, or not even new, but some technologies which came up to encourage some, yeah, let's say older technologies from the server-side rendering times. So the question is how to render HTML online fast. One point is not exactly about performance today. So it's not about micro performance or whatever. So in case you didn't read the abstract and expect this. Yeah, and we could make it short and say the only answer is use Vue and you can render HTML online. But we go a bit deeper and see some other different techniques today. So after a short definition about what we're talking, I will show some or point out some problems which could be there with the with current architectural patterns. Then we have a short view on the concept of micro frameworks. Then we will I will talk about the concept of Hotwire JS. Then we encounter what is LiveWire. It's also a framework. And at the end, we will have a look into InertiaJS, which is kind of a glue technology for all this we talked before. Okay, first of all, just to make it clear, I want to discuss the term rendering, because you might know the common computer science definition of rendering and thinking of doing some 3D rendering, yeah, some models into 3D picture or 3D scene or whatever, or that what the browser actually is doing, so getting some HTML or CSS and turning it into a picture with it, which is displayed, or a website which is displayed within the browser canvas. But in terms of web development, we usually mean turning some data model into HTML and CSS. So HTML and CSS is yeah, kind of our immediate language. We seldom author it in a raw manner. We usually use some other language to generate the HTML and CSS. So when we talk about rendering, we talk about generating this HTML. And there are usually two ways to do this kind of rendering. One is the server-side rendering and one is the client-side rendering. So server-side rendering, it's the classical thing like you have an application server, PHP application, whatever, you have a template system, you're gathering data from a database, generate HTML files with your template system, with your template engine, and have some controllers which serve them as on request as a HTML page. The client-side rendering on the other side makes it directly in the browser. So you usually have a very small yeah, HTML file, and then you have a big JavaScript application loaded into this HTML file, and the JavaScript application does the rendering, does the DOM updating, interacting, generating whatever with the data in memory or loaded from any other server. So, and with this, usually we have today one go-to architecture is the single page application pattern, which roughly looks like you have some application server on, also referred as the backend, which initially serves an HTML file or app shell file, also called. With this, what I said, with this big JavaScript application, also bundled or linked, and then different user inputs, interaction, leads this SPA app to request the server for more data, and then it will respond with some JSON, and you will update your HTML accordingly from what you have implemented in your application. And it's a nice architectural pattern, but as everything, you can challenge this also this pattern, and especially in my current project, I encountered the problem that we have a very strict separation of technologies here. We have a barrier between server and client technology, which must not be there. Which must not be there at all, and which leads me to some thesis. I would say that the decoupled architecture, which we have when we separate the front end or the client from the backend server, is for the most SPA-based project kind of a lie. In my experience, they are not really decoupled. We also call it an API, what we implement on the server, but it is not really an API. It's like just a communication gateway, but usually it's really tightly coupled to the needs of the front end. And then you have really also this technological gap between the front end and the back end, which might lead to unnecessary transport decoding. You always have to see if the data which comes from the back end is still there, were there transport issues while requesting the server, and unfortunately, if the backend is not the same language as the front end, you have duplication logic sometimes, or you have to do a really good job in slicing the concerns for front end and back end, for what the front end, what the back end is doing. And after all, sometimes it can be that you don't have this magical JavaScript guy in your company, or some of them, and it's might be so. It is another requirement to organize your team, to have someone who is able to authorize good or to write React, Vue, Angular, whatever apps. And in the times before all of these frameworks came up, and the everything SPA was an SPA, there was a library you might know. It was called jQuery, and the architecture was usually like a server was responsible for generating the HTML code, and each page was sent as an independent HTML document, and then you dropped in this jQuery things, and for more interactive widgets or behavior on your site or validations or whatever, people gonna use jQuery to make a bit more easier user experience. And this concept has kind of evolved. So even you can discuss, so jQuery, not everything about jQuery is bad, but there are new competitors which call themselves micro frameworks. And here we have one example. It's called AlpineJS, which is pretty lightweight, has this also this drop-in mechanism. So like you don't need any JavaScript builds, any all this overhead what you have in modern JavaScript development. And you might see here it in air quotes, it extends HTML. And has it's kind of its own small extended custom attributes, which is referring to. And here you see this example on a click, the value open turns to true, and then some content is shown. And so such small widgets can be easily done with, for example, AlpineJS. It's especially great if you're using or if you stick to a backend which generates the HTML. For example, some CMS system where you don't have the possibility to create or to dig into this build processes and inject your own Vue, React, whatever app, and so you can enhance your pages with such things. So from an architectural view, if you go back to this view, it might be not necessary to have an SPA at all. You can the next technology what we want to keep an eye of is Hotwire. Hotwire stands for HTML over the wire. It consists of 3 components, where here Strata is something for mobile platform integration, which is coming soon. I don't know. Stimulus, it's JavaScript adapter library. But today we are focusing on Turbo because it's the coolest name. No, but this is the thing which comes very close to what we want to what I want to talk about is a library or technology which encourage server-side rendered apps that feels like SPAs, so single page applications, by using a pattern which was formerly known as PJAX. So maybe if you heard this, it's kind of an evolution from this PJAX, but we will see how this works. It consists of 3 main concepts. It's the drive, frames, and streams, and we will now see how each of them work and play together. So let's consider we have here some browser, and we have our application server, and we made the request for index HTML. Then the server delivers an index HTML, and we show them. So this is what we all know, how the internet works. Then this index HTML also includes the Turbo.js without any other JS. It's just a drop-in library. And this Turbo.js will now go and take over the link handling. So all links are now occupied by TurboJS. And what usually happens when you have usually a tag HTML link, you would click, for example, on here, Hotwire, and then you would ask the server for hotwire.html. Now it is TurboJS intercepts this clicking on the link and makes a fetch for this resource to the server, and then handles the response of the Hotwire HTML. Here by swapping now the body of both pages of the index HTML, which is already loaded, and the Hotwire HTML, which came from the server. Okay, might be a little, and it also has some intelligent merging for the header. For example, if it will load new styles or something, it will recognize and also fetching the new styles in the head tag. Okay, so this can give you a bit more fluent performance. I think the perceived performance might be a bit better of your page, because you don't have this hard page transition. But this is not so much of a magic or something where Hotwire really has its strength are the frames. Frames, they advertise it like frames from HTML. Maybe some of you can remember HTML frames. They were architecturally a hell, but they were pretty easy to, when you start learning HTML, they were kind of pretty easy, because it felt kind of logically to structure the pages with frames. And here frames are also to see like the old frames from HTML, but they are turbo frames. So at the end it is just a custom element, which here, for example, we have the turbo frame around the content of our post, and within this frame we have a link for editing this post. Here you see the strength of this whole thing. Also, that this edit button is decided by the server, or if they can show it or not. So now we fetch it. I omitted this interception thing. You got it, I think. Now we fetch this page post one edit.html. So if I would call this page directly in the browser, I would see this post editor, and then here this what you see is what you get, fancy editor, which is also wrapped in the frame with the same name. And what now happens is that that Turbo will swapping also so it loads the whole page, it fetches the whole page, but only replaces the frame with the same name. There are also some attributes where you can more fine granular adjust what will where be replaced and what is the target of a link from different frames and so on. But the concept, I think it's clear. You're only switching, or you are able only to switch parts of a website, and the cool thing is to without reloading the actual page. And it's for the user, you know, it feels like pretty it can feel like pretty much faster, at least for the perceived performance, because
loading the page directly and display it might be faster if you're just see the timing and all the things. But this can be cool if you're maybe when we're remembering the talk from Norbert, so we're keeping in context here, and something can also from a user experience point, it can be a benefit. The last thing, and this makes Turbo pretty cool, are streams. And streams are like DOM commands encoded in HTML fragments. It sounds pretty academic, and I will show you what how you can interpret it. So we have our cool blog post, and under it some comments, and then we have our server app. So somebody somewhere in the world adds a comment somewhere. So on the usual page, you will not recognize this until you reload it. With Turbo, it has very lightweight protocol on how to interact with socket server, WebSocket, or server-sent events are possible here. And then it will push an event. The event is HTML fragment and enclosed or wrapped with this, or the HTML fragment should be enclosed with this also custom element Turbo stream. And the Turbo stream basically consists of an action or a target and a target. So the target is the comments section here. It works mostly with IDs. So it will be a comeback of IDs. I think in the modern web development, IDs are, nobody wants to use them. And here they get, have a comeback kind of. So, and what, now if this event, for example, the response of a form submission or something could also lead to some of such stream actions which manipulate the site. Okay, but this is basically the idea of Turbo and Hotwire. It's a pretty exciting technology. I had a small at-home project where I used it, also not with Ruby on Rails, with Python backend. So you can really use any proprietary backend technology. The only thing is to that you keep that you need to generate these streams maybe, or if you want to use it. Okay, so the next thing is LiveWire, and I see I should be a bit faster maybe before the time runs out or the stream breaks. I just took the self-description from the LiveWire page because I found it pretty precise. LiveWire at all, I want to start is it's a PHP component for the Laravel framework. So for those who don't know it, Laravel, it's you can say the Spring Boot for PHP, or the Django, or so this one full-blown backend framework which covers all aspects from database to rendering to controllers to HTTP to messaging, and you name it. And LiveWire is now a kind of component system for Laravel views. So what it does is LiveWire renders the initial component output of the page. So it you can just render your components as any other
parts of your template, but you have some special tag attributes and something that captures interactions, and then with these interactions are captured, it makes AJAX requests in the background and synchronize these parts, these components, by calling the PHP code on the backend. And then the PHP backend component re-renders this component and serves the new HTML together with some information about the current state. And on the client side, LiveWire is capable to to smartly merge the existing DOM with the newly created DOM. Here we have an example on how such components look like, and if you see, they are very close to the components we know from React, or at least the old React, where with the class-based React or Angular or something. So you have a template, you have this wiring and this model things, and you have just glue it into with some backend code. So now this is just a list of to-dos, and you have this input, and when you submit the form, add to-do is called. It will add the to-do which is typed in the next to-do, and automatically do this render thing. So it's like this abstract render method. You don't have to care about when they is called. You just say, okay, when it's called, then please use my livewire.todos template and render this HTML based on the current state of this component. How it looks like is in more technical terms. So we are typing something, and then the request is sent. So put enter, then such a request is sent. Which is interesting is that we send this data here, and here this update thing, I found it interesting. So it says call method. Which method? We don't have parameters here. It seems like it makes some remote procedure call things. And then we get the answer, and it has some HTML here, and the current state. And we see here what the to-dos has 2 entries, and the next to-do has this LiveWire thing. Here we have next to-do is empty, like we described in the or like we implemented, and the to-dos now have the entry learn LiveWire. So, and then it obviously is also rendered here. One thing to mark, while typing here, also all the time requests are pushed to the server, because it's updating the state of the next to-do thing in this server living component. So you will have a lot of requests when you're using LiveWire, I assume. Maybe there are also ways to avoid it, but I just want to point it out. Okay, we have 2 minutes. I think this is okay. What would be cool would be to have something we have any server technology, but we want to really use any client technology as our view or template engine, yeah. And something like a clue, a protocol which describes how they can talk together. And there is InertiaJS. InertiaJS works in the following way. It is a protocol, but with some implementations, it's also originating from the LiveWire community, but this has a server implementation or an official server implementation also for Ruby on Rails. But there are a lot of other implementations, and I will show you that it's not so hard to implement it on your own. It's working like the following. So we still have this initial response with this HTML, but now we have encoded the state of the we are encoding the state of the component of our page here in this page data, and this can be read by every client framework. So how this is glued together with the client framework, we will see. But for now, so this is an initial response. When we are now clicking one of the links, for example, then we're making a special request with some special Inertia headers. I omitted to add them here. But then we get the application, we get JSON responses from our, which encodes with which component, the props to use this component, a URL and a version, which is interesting for hashing and caching and all those stuff. Right, and how can this work? So it's very important when we have here, for example, this component posts. When we're setting it up on the client side, there is this Inertia library with the create Inertia app, which has to configure a resolver and the setup method. The resolve just gets the name of the loaded component. And in all examples, they made a dynamic require statement, for example, here from pages name. And pages could be any path where your server-side templates usually resides or wherever you want. So it's dynamically resolved when this component loads. So for in this example, it would the name would be post, and then on pages / post we would expect React component. It could also be a Vue, whatever. Here in this example, it's React. There is the setup. It gets the mount point. It gets the app, which is kind of an initial component, and the properties. So the app is what we are resolving here. It's the app. So depending on your framework, you will get the component here, and then you can render it with the props, which are also encoded here in the response, and then mounted on the particular element. Server setup, it's also pretty easy in air quotes. So you need to make sure that all Inertia assets are loaded in your app shell for sure. And then you need to find a way to implement this content negociation. Usually, for example, in Express, you would write a middleware, in Java, some servlet filters, and I think in Laravel world, it was called request interceptors. So the cool thing is then you can just like have your controllers, they produce some data, you say, okay, return this data for the view post, for example, and then at the end, this data for the view post, it's automatically rendered as a React component with all benefits from a React component that runs in the client side. Okay, then it was not completely in time, but yeah, please feel free.
So when I'm hearing about this new technology, I just feel about we have made everything wrong in the past, or did you get the same, or how do you feel about that?
What do you mean with past? Because I came from the time where SPAs were the new cool shit, and you have to argument to build SPAs.
Yes, right. I thought about the SPA time, not CGI.
There was a time before with theme leaf templates and something like this.
Tim, we did similar stuff, but by our own at O2, we used jQuery and rendered HTML snippets on the server side and replaced this. Yes, but it was fine.
Yeah.
Sure.
Sometimes it's not a bad decision.
Not used in any other framework, just jQuery, and this was working wonderful.
Yeah, but with your Norbert, you said did we do everything wrong? I know I had this title, which is kind of provocative and something. It's like all architectural things. It's not wrong at all or good at all or whatever. I just want to say that SPAs are not always the best fit for the problem, and they could cause more distortion, and sometimes it's easier to just use the server rendered HTML or something.
May I say something? I think there's also this race related to search engine optimization, because an SPA is a no-go in case you want to be really fast, and speed is the most important aspect in search engine optimization. And time to first contentful paint is also extremely relevant, and that's something you can achieve with server-side rendering. And an SPA, so the reason for that is because of the web crawlers that query your HTML and then parse it. And if you have an SPA, you can forget about it, because apparently only the Google bot can do this, but it's also unknown how and to what extent. It can load your page and then run the JavaScript required to completely finish your page. But most of the other browsers, Google search engines, don't do that. So I think this is mostly so development of these type of frameworks is mostly pushed by this search engine optimization aspect, because everybody wants to be the fastest on the market and the first on your Google search list and stuff like that.
Yes. Thanks. It's obviously SEO. It's a topic, and you usually also read it on most of the web pages from this project. But in general, for example, in Inertia, with this initial response, you will not have the benefit here, because there you need JavaScript to run to decode this page object. There are also some technologies which I didn't point out today because they are JavaScript only, but these are things or frameworks like Next or Nuxt or Remix. I didn't put it in this slides because I wanted to focus more on an arbitrary backend technology, so that you're not stick to JavaScript, because so we have a lot of also a lot of Java engineers in our company. So yeah, sometimes can be good to say, okay, yeah, you can also make cool pages just with the template engine from Spring. I don't know, it's Leaf or something. And you don't have to do so much for this. Yeah?
Was the reason why we did this at O2. We were all Java developers. We had some little knowledge about JavaScript, and we don't want to set up NPM and Node and stuff like this. And it was quite simple. Render some HTML fragments and add them to your page. It was everything we needed for our use case.
Yeah, and therefore
it's simple. It's just simple.
Yeah. So jQuery has this small downside that the code can get a bit confusing.
Yeah, but it's some years ago, and for us it was fine.
Yeah, no, it's don't want to challenge your decision from this time. So, but yeah, from today's perspective, I think these micro frameworks would be a cool fit.
Turbo frame would also good fit. Just change some diffs or stuff like this.
Yeah,
some content. Add some content.
There is also from I don't know, Heise or Entwickler.de. They have a pretty large article where they use Turbo in a Spring Boot setup.
Yeah, this Turbo frame sounds like what we did with jQuery and rendering HTML. It sounds really similar.
Yeah. In jQuery there was this library or this small thing called pjax, which basically did what Drive did. So it intercepts the all links and handles the request and just swapped some parts in the DOM and not perfect. Entirely loaded.
I think about the objective with the CEO, search engine optimization. And definitely true if you have some web pages which are for end customers and really available in the internet. But I think the most applications we are doing currently is for administration or managing stuff, and always need some authentication first. So I don't see any benefits of this server-side rendering for this case. I have made some application with Nuxt, and it was a pain because you have to watch the page always twice with reloading and checking whether it's the same content and so on. So I think this kind of technology is especially interesting if it's faced for the customers.
No, not at all. Maybe I think the difference is here that these technologies are focusing on server-side rendered frameworks and let them be a bit more like SPAs or a bit more JavaScript integration without authoring JavaScript. Next is the completely different approach. It's how we can use our client frameworks rendered on the backend,
right?
And this is a bit the different. And in my current project, we are doing an administration, administrative backend stuff. So some forms, some entities are created. You click save, you click abort. You have some state changes, state transitions, some models, blah blah blah. So all this stuff, and the architecture is Angular and Spring Boot backend. And for 90% of this application, we don't need Angular or any other of these competitors.
we could perfectly just make everything, every template on the server, and yeah, use a micro framework or whatever to enhance some small user experience things. So also in the in this world, it's not always said that the SPA is the best fit.